Tonight, the CEO of Rogers faces tough questions from MPs after a CBC News investigation.
Is it just basically that you just assume that your customers are stupid?
Rogers customers told us they were misled about contracts and prices.
It's disgusting.
What happened when he was summoned to Ottawa? The race to dig out after a monster snowstorm. Roads blocked, people trapped.
We stayed in the car and slept in the car.
The state of emergency in Ontario's cottage country. And backlash after Joe Biden breaks his promise and pardons his son. Andrew Chang is here to break down why it is so unusual.
He said he wouldn't do it, then he didn't.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. MPs have now finally had the chance to grill the CEO of Rogers Communications over customer complaints of sneaky price hikes. They've been rolling in for weeks, but he has been hard to pin down. Tony Staffieri failed to show up at a parliamentary committee last week, but today he faced frustration and, along with a Bell Canada executive, questions about contracts and prices. This all got started with a CBC Go Public investigation into costs that were rising for TV customers, even though they were locked in a contract. Erica Johnson broke that story and picks it up here.
Rogers CEO Tony Staffieri appeared by video conference, which didn't go over well.
I would have expected after all of this, I would have seen you here in person today.
Staffieri skipped his last scheduled appearance at the Standing Committee on Industry and Technology by sending a subordinate. Infuriated MPs then ordered a summons to make him appear. Their concern, a growing chorus of Rogers customers frustrated by contracts they say are unfair and misleading.
Is it just basically that you just assume that your customers are stupid?
How many other buried costs do you have in the contract that you can jack up and rip Canadians off on?
For 2 months, Go Public has been hearing from people like Lori Michelsia. She signed a 2-year deal for TV, internet, and home phone in August, believing it'd be $199 a month. Shortly after, her monthly bill shot up $21. A clause in Bell, Rogers, and TELUS contracts allows fees to increase while customers are locked in.
It's disgusting. When you enter into a contract, that is a detailed agreement between 2 or more parties that you expect is going to be what you agreed to.
Michelsia figures over a year her bills will be about $250 more than what she expected.
It's just plain ethically wrong.
In the hot seat, Staffieri repeatedly defended his company's contracts.
Our term commitments are on base TV services, and we make it clear there are other items that are add-ons.
But the MPs weren't buying it, one citing the case of Kathy Cooper, whose story First Told on The National kicked off a flood of other complaints.
If I reviewed that contract myself, do you think it's reasonable for me to say that it's a plain language contract?
I think you would find it straightforward.
In the end, several MPs said they felt Staffieri's testimony was similar to what Rogers customers experience, short on details.
The committee is expected to pass a motion to call out the communications giant in the House of Commons for not proactively disclosing price increases.
So in the end, I suppose, is that just a slap on the wrist?
Well, Adrienne, NDP MP Brian Massey, who first pushed to hear from Rogers CEO, says he has another motion that he hopes to pass, calling on the minister responsible to prevent Rogers, Bell and TELUS from having this language in their contracts that allows them to jack up costs mid-contract. And that would be quite something. Canadians have complained about what they call sneaky fees for years.
Absolutely. All right, Erica Johnson in Vancouver, thank you. There is news tonight connected to possible meddling by India in the 2022 federal Conservative leadership race. One candidate, Patrick Brown, says he will appear before a Commons Committee on Foreign Interference. And our colleagues at Radio Canada have learned why some campaign insiders believed agents of the Modi government were at work. Brigitte Bureau has the story.
Pierre Poilievre emerged victorious from a divisive leadership race, which is once again stirring controversy.
Help me fight for this future.
Patrick Brown, one of his main rivals, was the target of Indian interference, according to 5 people close to his campaign. We are not naming these sources because they say they fear for their safety.
This minister has been allowed to fail upwards.
Brown's national co-chair, Conservative MP Michelle Rempel-Garner, was allegedly pressured to pull her support for the candidate. According to a source, it was well known that Indian consulate representatives had approached Michelle strongly suggesting that it was not in her best interest to continue working alongside Patrick. Other sources say they heard the MP herself talk about it on a team conference call. One said these Indian diplomats approached her and told her, "You need to retract your support for Patrick."
Michelle Rempel-Garner announced in a tweet she's stepping aside.
Later in the race, she quit the campaign. At the time, she said she was considering a move to provincial politics, which did not materialize. In response to Radio-Canada's questions, Rempel-Garner sent a written statement. "I left Mr. Brown's campaign completely of my own volition. In no instance was I coerced in any manner by anyone at any time. I've always taken into account the perspectives of many different Canadian interest groups and stakeholders." Patrick Brown would not grant us an interview.
His courage.
As mayor of Brampton, the Canadian city with the largest Sikh population, he took stances in favor of this community, which upset Indian agents, according to our sources. Hindu supporters of Brown were allegedly told not to support him, not to sell membership cards for him, not to invite him to certain events. The High Commission of India and Canada refused to comment.
Patrick Brown now disqualified.
Brown never finished the race. He was disqualified by the Conservative Party after allegations of wrongdoing linked to election financing, allegations that were later dismissed by the Commissioner of Canada Elections. Both the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre's office say they have no knowledge of Indian interference to undermine Patrick Brown's campaign, but Poilievre has refused to obtain the necessary security clearance to access classified documents on foreign interference.
And Brigitte, why is it significant that Poilievre has not obtained this clearance?
Well, every other party leader in Parliament said they felt it was their responsibility to obtain this clearance. They wanted to get a clear picture of the foreign interference happening in this country. They especially wanted to know if any members of their party, past or present, had been compromised. Only then could they take the necessary action.
All right, Brigitte Bureau reporting from Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrienne.
Tonight, a critical highway through Ontario's Muskoka region is finally reopening after a stunning weekend snowfall locked the whole area down. About 140 centimeters of snow fell over the weekend in the town of Gravenhurst, and it is still digging out. The community remains under state of emergency tonight. Well, help is arriving from other regions of Ontario. Crews are clearing downed power lines and trees as they work to get more roads open. And as Ali Chiasson shows us, there's a major effort underway to free stuck vehicles, too.
When the snow slammed Ontario's Muskoka region, these trucks followed their GPS off the main highway, number 11, and onto side roads like this one.
Just around this corner, it's literally a really hard left and then followed by a really hard right, and it drops down a hill. This road is not designed for these guys. There's too many corners that are way too tight and skinny bridges that are barely capable of holding two cars at once, never mind a transport truck.
There are a dozen trucks here. The meter of snow they were under has melted away, and the heavy tows have been running day and night to get them out.
I'm running out of fuel now. I'm 3 days here, pulling out people to get back to Toronto.
The snow came so fast on Saturday that it trapped hundreds of drivers. A 100-kilometer stretch of Highway 11 was shut down, so some tried to find another way through.
Some of them said that their GPS told them to take this back way, and I think once one guy came, they followed the next guy, so they took the back way, and it wasn't a good idea.
Monday, that highway began to reopen, a key artery restored.
Oh, I can't remember ever in my life ever experiencing a highway closure of this magnitude.
In the town of Gravenhurst, a state of emergency was in effect for a second day. As crews worked to restore power and the shoveling and plowing continued, this mom was still trying to get home after spending the night with her kids in her car.
Well, it was warm because I got gas, but we stayed in the car and slept in the car and made what we could of it.
Back on the side road, the Ontario trucks didn't have any tire chains on them, but Luckily, there are a couple of trucks from Alberta and Manitoba, and they have chains. A little traction and trucker teamwork. These guys are back on the road. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Gravenhurst.
U.S. President Joe Biden is facing backlash tonight after he pardoned his son, Hunter, something he has repeatedly said he would not do. Paul Hunter now with why Biden's reversal isn't sitting well with some lawmakers.
With possible jail time for his son looming later this month, Joe Biden's decision, says the White House, came during a weekend visit with his family. A pardon for my son, Hunter, he wrote, who, says Biden, had been selectively and unfairly prosecuted for gun and tax crimes. Citing political opponents, he added, in trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me. Enough is enough. The U.S. president is now on an official visit to Africa. En route, his press secretary defended the pardon.
He wrestled with it. He thought about it. And he believed, and what he saw was that his son was singled out.
And though Biden underlines he believes in the justice system, the pardon is a sharp reversal for him from the stance he took when running for re-election in June.
That I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Now, rebukes from all sides. President-elect Donald Trump calls the pardon a miscarriage of justice, though late in his presidency, Trump gave pardons for political allies and his son-in-law's father. Some Democrats said, putting family ahead of country, Biden will tarnish his reputation. And yet, say others, for Biden it's especially complicated, with Trump having pledged to go after the Biden family when he's back in the White House. An imprisoned Hunter Biden might have made for an extra easy target.
I think it was the concern that he would be put in the position where Donald Trump would be able to essentially directly be able to bring his retribution against Hunter Biden in a myriad of ways once he was in the federal prison system.
The White House says to expect more pardons from Joe Biden before the end of his presidency. If so, likely none more fraught, nor so close to home. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, Andrew Chang will break down the impact of Biden's pardon and why it's so unusual. Now to a CBC News exclusive that shows Ontario is on track to have the worst year yet for emergency room closures. Julie Ireton takes us through the data and the reaction tonight.
This emergency department in rural southwestern Ontario tops the list with the highest number of hours closed this year.
You love to be number one, but not in this contest.
That department is part of a CBC News analysis. It found ERs and urgent care centres across Ontario were closed for more hours in 2024 than in any of the previous 3 years. That's because more ERs permanently reduced their hours, mostly in rural areas. The Chesley Hospital's emergency is one of those. Now it only operates between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. It's closed on weekends. Seniors in Chesley recently voiced concerns at a public meeting. This resident had a mild heart attack when the ER was closed. He had to wait for an ambulance and travel to another hospital.
If I'd had a serious heart attack, you wouldn't be interviewing me right now.
Yeah, my biggest concern is people will just delay, and then when they do finally go, it's a more serious condition.
I have the fear of something happening during the night when our ER is not open.
Most closures are due to a shortage of nurses. The Ontario government has pledged to train more nurses and provide fill-in doctors in remote and rural communities.
The health minister was asked this morning about the high number of scheduled closures.
Yes, it was concerning us. Yes, we continue to work with our hospital partners through Ontario Health to make sure that they have sufficient staff.
Ontario isn't alone. ER closures are a problem from Nova Scotia to British Columbia.
It certainly appears that the situation is worsening across the country.
Doctors, nurses, and advocates worry lives are at risk unless there are system-wide solutions. Julie Ireton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Manitoba's premier says the search of a landfill for the remains of 2 murdered First Nations women has entered a new phase tonight.
So no matter what lies ahead, we can say that we tried and we made the effort for these families.
The remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are believed to have been taken to this landfill near Winnipeg in May of 2022. Crews have narrowed the search to a specific area. Today, the dig officially began there. Searchers are now sifting through material manually with rakes and gloved hands. The Premier says they found objects that suggest they are searching through debris from the right time frame. Turning now to Syria, where there are concerns the civil war in that country is entering a dangerous new phase after rebels captured most of the city of Aleppo. Our senior international correspondent, Margaret Evans, is in neighboring Lebanon.
The flames threatening to engulf Syria and beyond, reignited by seemingly dormant rebel groups emerging to seize territory from government forces. This was Syria's response, airstrikes in Aleppo and in Idlib province, home to a myriad of opposition groups backed by Turkey. Their capture of Aleppo, led by a former al-Qaeda affiliate, was carried out with breathtaking speed.
Not only me, everybody was surprised, including the regime in Syria.
Turkey, though, insists this Middle East analyst and former Lebanese general must have known.
They cannot move out of the borders of Idlib without green light of Turkey. So Turkey was not at all surprised.
This all comes as Syria's main regional backers, Iran and its proxy, the Lebanese militia Hezbollah, have been weakened by conflicts with Israel. Turkey's foreign minister met his Iranian counterpart Monday, saying Damascus must reconcile with its people and what he called the legitimate opposition. Syria insists it will put the insurgents down. This is the head of the armed forces out meeting soldiers in villages reportedly recaptured from the rebels. This is our land and our pride, he said. And in Syria's northeast, there were huge demonstrations in Rojava, the de facto autonomous region run by the Kurds, who accuse the rebel opposition groups of now also attacking Kurdish fighters near Aleppo. Across the border here in Lebanon, fears of a Syrian escalation are particularly deep. The recent ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel increasingly shaky. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Beirut.
The political crisis in Georgia is deepening tonight, with tens of thousands in the streets demanding new elections.
It's twice as outrageous when a government that is not considered legitimate by its population takes a 180% turn towards Russia.
Why many are accusing Moscow of meddling in the country's affairs. Next. Plus, a border city bracing after Donald Trump's tariff threat.
Something like that for our city would be devastating.
Katie Nicholson shows us the anxiety on both sides. And later, a care package for snowbound truckers.
All of them are like, oh, it feels like Christmas. Thank you so much for this.
The Good Samaritan who gave them a helping hand. We're back in 2. That chaotic scene is in Guinea as soccer fans scrambled to get to safety after clashes broke out over a disputed refereeing call. Some managed to get out over the stadium's walls, but others caught in a crush were trampled. At least 56 people were killed. Well, there's growing anger in Georgia, where thousands of demonstrators are demanding the government reverse a decision to pause talks on joining the European Union. Briar Stewart now on the violent clashes and Canada's response.
Thousands gathered in front of Georgia's parliament for a 5th straight night. Some launched firecrackers. In response, riot police fired water cannons and tear gas. The protesters say they won't let up.
Unless we get whatever we want, and that's the parts to be part of the EU.
More than 150 have been arrested since protests ignited last week after Georgia's prime minister said the country was suspending talks to join the EU until 2028. The leader of the long-time ruling Georgian Dream Party also said there would be no negotiations with the opposition, which believes the election in October was rigged. Georgia's president is the country's ceremonial head of state, but she's now in a standoff with the government.
It's twice as outrageous when a government that is not considered legitimate by its population takes a 180% turn towards Russia.
The Kremlin calls what's happening in Georgia akin to a revolution, the kind that led Ukraine into, quote, a dark abyss.
And I think the pressure now has intensified.
Natalie Sebanadze is Georgia's former ambassador to the EU.
It is also part and parcel of the global geopolitical confrontation between Russia and the West. And what is happening in Georgia is Russia's gain.
The Baltic countries announced that they are sanctioning senior Georgian officials for what they say is a police crackdown on protesters. And Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister, who was in Riga Monday, said Ottawa will soon follow suit.
And we are very concerned about what Russia is trying to do.
Moscow claims it isn't meddling in Georgia, but the crowd is convinced Russia already has, and they vow to keep pushing back. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Communities on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border are worried about the looming threat of tariffs from Donald Trump.
I'm sure it would cause a lot of, possibly close down our companies that are keeping the city together.
Katie Nicholson takes us to a border city where the effects could be devastating. Plus, Joe Biden's pardon of his son Hunter got many people off guard.
It is unusual for there not to be specific crimes that are cited.
We'll break down why some say it is so problematic. And protesters storm Pakistan's capital. What's caused tensions to boil over? The National breaks down the story shaping our world. Next.
Blue jean baby, LA lady.
Elton John says he has lost his eyesight after an infection. He made that admission at the opening night of the Devil Wears Prada musical, which he wrote the score for. The 77-year-old says the infection has left him with limited vision in one eye and the complete loss of vision in the other. But he does say he is healing slowly. There is concern and anxiety on both sides of the Canada-U.S. border as Donald Trump threatens to impose big tariffs on Canadian products. Katie Nicholson takes us to two border cities and shows us how they're bracing for the worst.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for your Sioux.
The Michigan Sioux Eagles facing off against their cross-border rivals, Ontario's Sioux Thunderbirds. But it's another battle between the two neighbors that has gripped people in this steel town. President-elect Donald Trump's proposed 25% tariff on Canadian goods, worrying Americans.
It would affect us considerably because people wouldn't be going over there shopping, buying their gas.
And Canadians alike.
I'm sure it would cause a lot of, possibly close down our companies that are keeping the city together.
Algoma Steel employs nearly 4,000 people, including contractors from both sides of the border. The last time Trump briefly put a 25% tariff on Canadian steel in 2017, there were dozens of layoffs in the industry here.
It was definitely going to be, cuts in jobs.
And if that does happen, the Chamber of Commerce isn't mincing words.
Something like that for our city would be devastating.
A short drive over the bridge that spans the two Sioux.
Hi, how are you?
To this Michigan crepe shop where anxiety is also high.
It's a matter of whether or not the Canadian population continues to come over and support local businesses on this side of the bridge. We have no idea what it's going to look like, so.
People here have deep roots, family and friends on both sides of the border. Mayor Matthew Shoemaker meets his American counterpart across the river regularly for a drink.
We want to make sure that those ties are close so that if we need to have them
advocate against the tariffs if they are imposed, then we think we have an ally there that will lend us their support.
No one knows whether the incoming Trump administration is actually going to enact these tariffs, but if it does, it's clear. It's something people on both sides of this bridge are going to have to work through together. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Deadly unrest in Pakistan's capital. Protesters demand the release of a jailed former prime minister, seen as a threat by a powerful military.
Only one of them can emerge from this standing.
But first, Joe Biden's sweeping presidential pardon and his broken promise not to use it for his son.
It is unusual for there not to be specific crimes that are cited.
So why has he reversed himself, and why now? Andrew Chang, host of About That, breaks down the competing interests at stake, the principle, the politics, and the very personal.
He said he wouldn't do it, then he did it.
This full and unconditional pardon.
U.S. President Joe Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter.
The presidential pardon Joe Biden has just issued his son, Hunter, is sweeping in nature. Total immunity for anything criminal he may have done in the last 10 years.
This is a major reversal on a deeply personal matter.
So why now? Was Biden lying when he promised to stay out of his son's criminal case? And either way, how does this now change the rules of the game? So let's look at the pardon itself, an executive grant of clemency. It starts, "To all to whom these presents shall come," which is just a very old way of saying to whom it may concern. Then it says, "Robert Hunter Biden, a full and unconditional pardon." And then, here's the important part. "For those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. So there are two cases where Hunter Biden was convicted on felony charges. One was for lying about his drug addiction so that he could buy a handgun.
He's accused of lying on a government form, buying and owning a gun while he was using illegal drugs.
The other case was for tax evasion.
9 indictments against the president's son this morning from a court in California, including failure to pay nearly $1.5 million in taxes and filing false tax returns.
Money which, by the way, he has since paid back. Both of those sets of crimes occurred in the last 10 years, which this pardon covers. But even if, hypothetically, there's some other crime that he committed in that time, which we don't know about, this pardon covers that too.
It is unusual for there not to be specific crimes that are cited.
Presidents can frame the pardons however they please, with very rare exceptions. Most are specific to crimes and sentences and not broadly worded to capture possible crimes that occurred within a given time frame.
And I'll show you what she means. Through the U.S. Justice Department, I managed to track down the clemency records of Roger Stone. He's a longtime Trump friend and confidant. He got wrapped up in the Russia investigation, indicted for lying to Congress, witness tampering, and obstruction. But the pardon Trump granted him while he was president is for those very specific crimes. You see the case number, the charges, the exact sentence. It is a full, unconditional, but narrowly applied pardon. Here's another one for Paul Manafort, who served as Trump's campaign chair in 2016. Again, we don't need to analyze the details line by line, but the document is very clear about which specific crimes are being pardoned. And I'll show you one more, because this one's a little different. It still pardons only very specific crimes, in his case, tax evasion and one charge related to a bizarre blackmail plot. But this is a pardon for Charles Kushner. That's the father of Jared Kushner, who is Donald Trump's son-in-law, husband to his daughter, Ivanka. And I say this just to make the point that the pardon of Hunter Biden isn't the first time we've seen a president pardon a relative. But there is only one other time many of the experts we spoke to say we've seen such a sweeping pardon affecting any potential crime committed during a huge window of time.
Richard Nixon.
The big one, of course, is Richard Nixon after Watergate.
Does harken back to Nixon's pardon.
50 years ago, Gerald Ford issued a blanket pardon for Richard Nixon. not just for his involvement in the Watergate scandal, but for any offense Nixon may have committed between exactly January 20th, 1969 and August 9th, 1974, the exact span of Nixon's presidency.
He wanted to move the country forward. The best way to do that, he thought, was to give Nixon a full and unconditional pardon.
But the use of pardons has changed since then. Traditionally, full pardons have mostly been granted to people who've already served their time.
It is mostly symbolic. It has the effect of restoring any civil rights that the person might have still lost as a result of being a convicted felon.
Pardons have tended to emphasize an accepting of responsibility and a desire to move on. But in Trump's case, and now in Biden's case, they've been quite clear. The justice system can't always be trusted to get things right, and sometimes only the president, with this broad, unilateral, and nearly absolute power, can make it right. Throughout his presidency, Joe Biden has always promised that he wouldn't interfere in his son's criminal case.
I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No. It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no. Will he pardon his son? No.
Does the president have any intention of pardoning him?
We've been asked that question multiple times. Our answer stands, which is no.
This is because, I think, he understood what it would mean for a president to appear to so brazenly misuse their power in a way that might seem incredibly self-serving.
I think a lot of people would say, well, you know, if it were my son and I had the power to do something about it, I would do it, but that doesn't make it any less problematic.
This does create some real problems for the Democratic Party. You know, their whole thing has been that nobody is above the law.
In his official statement, Joe Biden doesn't hide the fact that he's doing this for personal reasons. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. And that is wrong. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me. And there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. Now, what is he talking about there?
I think it comes down to the fact that he doesn't want to put his son in Donald Trump's target for retribution.
Trump and his supporters believe Hunter Biden is guilty of more than what he's been charged with. Last year, House Republicans led an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden's business relationship with his son, particularly while he was vice president and his son conducted business in Ukraine and China. That inquiry ultimately didn't really get anywhere. It stopped short of alleging any criminal wrongdoing. But Donald Trump doesn't appear to want to drop the case.
President Biden engaged in impeachable conduct and said he abused his office and defrauded the United States of America to enrich his family.
Biden's pardon covers the moment Hunter joined the board of a Ukrainian gas company. That's why it goes back 10 years. And just one day before Biden announced this pardon, Trump announced his pick for the next head of the FBI, a loyalist who has vowed to go after Trump's enemies.
There is no question this is a fraught moment.
I think the problem here is that both sides don't really adhere to any sort of neutral principle against politicizing the Justice Department. The problem that they have is when it's politicized against their side.
I think it's out the window that there is any kind of decorum around pardons.
Pardoning somebody for a length of time, 11 years, and having it encompass anything that happened during that period of time. If you're Donald Trump, you could potentially look at that and say, I'm going to pardon people without specifying crimes.
Donald Trump, once he assumes office, will be under pressure to pardon his supporters who were jailed after the January 6th riots on the Capitol. Some of them are still in prison, even now. But what's new is that Biden and Trump now appear to agree on one critical thing, that justice has been twisted by politics, and that sometimes the justice system gets things very wrong. And Adrian, that it should be within a president's authority to make things right as he or she sees fit.
Thank you, Andrew. Coming up, unrest on the streets of Pakistan's capital.
Khan's supporters knew that they risked arrest and perhaps jail, and yet you still had this large show of force.
What's driving the political standoff? We'll break that down next. Ongoing chaos in the capital of Pakistan, the violent crackdown by security forces as an imprisoned former leader urges supporters to fight on.
The resolution, whatever it is going to tell us a lot about Pakistan going forward.
Ousted from power almost 3 years ago, Imran Khan remains hugely popular. The protest by his supporters a challenge to the government and the army. South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji looks at what is at stake on the streets of Pakistan's capital.
It was a welcome of tear gas and bullets fired off by security forces, who apparently had clearance to shoot to kill. The protesters say officers fired live rounds. The police deny that, but they formed a wall of resistance to keep thousands of protesters out of Pakistan's capital, arresting hundreds of them for defying a ban on gathering. Violence on both sides. This was after days of protesters marching on Islamabad, sidestepping the many shipping containers set out as barricades meant to stop them from advancing.
So what do the protesters want? It's pretty simple. Imran Khan. They want him back. They're demanding the former Prime Minister of Pakistan be released from prison.
This government is full of traitors, one protester says. Long live Imran Khan. We stand united behind him, says another. We're ready to sacrifice everything. It's a bitter showdown, and there's plenty of uncertainty.
What we have is the kind of confrontation between the establishment and the PTI, led, of course, by Imran Khan. Only one of them can emerge from this standing.
So how exactly did Pakistan get here? Well, the anger in Khan's camp has been seething for months now. Khan is behind bars and has been since August of last year, 2023. The former star cricket player turned populist politician was ousted from power in a non-confidence vote and jailed on corruption charges that he calls politically motivated.
See, Khan used to have the backing of Pakistan's powerful military. You kind of have to be in power in the country. But then he fell out of favor.
He wasn't able to run in the last election, back in February, since he was in jail. A crackdown against his party, Tehreek-e-Insaf, meant its candidates had to run as independents. His supporters held rallies quietly, tucked into backyards and side alleys. And after the vote, the allegations of irregularities and vote suppression got louder. This one candidate showed me official documents that said he had the votes, he won. But then the votes disappeared by morning.
Complete change.
And this is the openly rigging.
Khan declared a resounding victory in this AI voice-generated message from behind bars.
But it didn't matter. He didn't win. His independents won the most seats, but the other parties built a coalition to block them, and that didn't sit well with Khan's supporters.
They staged protest after protest, and then this latest demonstration snowballed.
Khan's supporters knew that they risked arrest and perhaps jail, and yet you still had this large show of force. And I think that is because it was Khan himself who raised the stakes. He called this movement, this protest, the final call.
Khan's wife, Bushra Bibi, who's usually very private, led the protests as a stand-in for her husband. Another unusual development.
Still, a lot of this is a familiar pattern, déjà vu in Pakistan. There are protests, there's a state crackdown.
This one was called off by Khan's party after it descended into violence, but that has also angered his supporters.
There's no question Imran Khan has enormous popularity, and there's no question that the military, if it wants to use all of its force, is a formidable force.
So now what? There's no clear winner and a stalemate of sorts. And here's the thing, Pakistan has a lot of other issues, urgent ones.
Its economy is really struggling. There's been a rise in terrorist attacks, and more political turmoil is the last thing the country needs.
So one of the things that I worry about is that this ongoing, worsening, paralyzing political crisis or confrontation will make it all the more difficult for those in power to allocate the proper policy space and bandwidth to addressing this large number of other very serious crises.
And there's this. The devotion Khan inspires and the anger against the establishment.
Even if his party is weaker than it used to be, one thing is very clear. Imran Khan's popularity hasn't waned one bit. And with that comes power and the promise of more instability in Pakistan.
Salima's report noted the relatively new involvement of Imran Khan's wife, Bushra Bibi, released from her own prison term in October. Multiple sources say that on Monday, a Pakistan court issued another arrest warrant for her. Now, here's a look at another story we're working on. Canadian politicians increasingly targeted by hate and violence in person and online. Ioana Roumeliotis looks at the threat and escalating tensions. Here's a preview of her story.
These are scary times on Parliament Hill. Intimidation and threats of violence against the Prime Minister and politicians from all parties have become alarmingly routine. Harassment of members of Parliament is up nearly 800% in the last 5 years. It's happening here, at their constituency offices, even their homes. And with an election looming, tensions are rising.
Dearest Pam, I hope and pray to God that you will die a horrible, painful death, off with your head and hung from the gates. Burn in hell. C-word.
That's hard to hear. I can't imagine what it's like for you.
I don't understand how people think it's okay to speak to people like that. I never, in my entire life, had anyone ever use that C-word. And as a politician, in the last 4 years or so, it's used all the time. All the time.
And Pam Demoff says it's getting worse.
Now people are sending an email and adding their name and business name onto it. I think people are emboldened.
You can catch Ioana's full story in the days ahead right here on The National. Up next, after a massive snowstorm, a Good Samaritan helps out stranded drivers.
We loaded the truck up twice and gave everybody like a care package.
The act of kindness in our moment. So that man right there is Jesse Grimes, owner of a Sobeys store in Gravenhurst, Ontario. He's pictured here with his truck full of food and water for drivers in need who were stuck on the road after that huge dump of snow. So amid the intense snowy conditions, Jesse gave them support while they waited for their path to clear, and tonight his act of goodwill makes our moment.
I just thought, this will just be a little bit of snow, not a big deal. And once I seen the 100 centimeters come on, and then possibly another 100 and more than that, I'm just driving past all the transports. All those guys are stuck in there, right? But it was pretty upsetting even driving by that and seeing these guys have already been here for these 24 or 30 hours. We loaded the truck up twice and gave everybody a care package, 4 clementines, a loaf of bread, and some other pieces to go with it. All of them are oh, it feels like Christmas. Thank you so much for this. I just asked myself, what can I do? I'm not a cop, not a firefighter, but there's something that, we can do to be better. That's what our intention was to make sure that they're safe and comfortable.
And what I love about this and about Jesse is that it's not only bad things that are contagious, right? There is a contagion effect with kindness too. And he said that when he went to some of the truckers, some of them said, you know what, I think I'm going to be okay, but I'm worried about that guy over there and that guy back there. They're the ones you should be looking out for. So good things and good people are all around us. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.